KFAN.
To noon.
Good stuff.
Time for two more.
You like that?
What in the ham fat is going on with you guys?
Oh my God!
You lucky suckers.
You want to change the conversation? Win some games.
And the 9 to noon radio show is in the air on a Wednesday. Hello, it's Paul Allen. Welcome back to FM 100.3 KFAN. Welcome to the neighborhood. The neighborhood being the 651 Carpets Plus Studios. Happy to begin this beautiful Wednesday with a howl. Chris Hines is an assistant coach for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he's coaching the Summer League team featuring the 2 first-round picks from the draft last month. And Mr. Hines joins us now. Chris, it's Paul Allen. Good to meet you, and congratulations on this excellent opportunity.
Nice to meet you too as well, Paul.
With the head coach, being the head coach for the Wolves Summer League team and just coaching in the Summer League in general, when I say congrats on the opportunity, and if you look at it as an honor, which I do, like how do you ascend to this spot?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think, first of all, you're right. It is an honor, not only to be able to help these young players, fulfill their dream, but it's an honor to represent an organization that is on our rise and be a part of this spectacular journey that we're on right now. But for me, it's been a long journey. I've been coached for 10 years now, and so I'm not only excited about the opportunity, but I'm super ready to help develop these young supernatural talented players.
Is patience required, when you're ascending the coaching ranks? And the reason I ask is, because I know, we're a decade and change from you playing for the Alabama Crimson Tide. So, I mean, I can't remember if you played with JaMychal Green or not, but you were there right around that time, and that wasn't that long ago.
Well, Paul, we get our names mixed up a lot. That's the other Chris Hines. He's 6'8". I'm about 6'1". I played for the University of Utah, and I played for Coach Jim Boylan and played for Larry Krystkowiak.
Right.
And so I'm a guard at the University of Utah.
Holy cow!
But to answer your question, though, for sure, it takes a lot of patience. Not only patience, you have to also understand the nature of coaching, right? Going through it. My journey started in the G League. Then after the G League as an intern, from driving buses and washing clothes and doing film, I went straight into it in China. I spent 3 years in China, coached there as an assistant coach, came back, went back to the G League as a lead assistant, and then found my way into the NBA. So this will be my 5th year in the NBA.
But the question still is pertinent despite the unacceptable error. All right, 3-2. So patience, I would imagine, is required because, you're barely a decade removed from playing basketball at Drake after you played at Utah. So, it's still coursing through your 6'1" body and your blood, right?
Oh man, I can still play. I can still play.
Right.
My knees are a little shot, and the day after kind of hurts. But yes, it is. It's a journey. It's a grind. But at the end of the day, it's well worth it when you're doing something you love.
Well, I'm looking at what you did at Utah and Drake now, and my new friend Moses Zihambe, who's your director of player programs. I met him a couple of weeks ago at an event at Target Field, and
Great guy.
he played at Oral Roberts not that long ago. I mean, shoot, if any of these summer league kids or any of the veterans get out of line, I mean, all you and Moses got to do is like put on a uniform and get out there and go 2-on-2 to get them right. Correct?
Well, Moses can still play. He's a lot better player than I was, a lot better shooter than I was. But yeah, if we have to, whatever it takes to win, we're gonna get it done.
Chris, you mentioned the Timberwolves as it's an honor to coach an up and coming team, and from Dillingham through Shannon Jr. and Jalen Clark, he's I would imagine he's super excited for what's coming up. If you take that and then what you have with Anthony and Karl Anthony Towns and Gobert and Conley and McDaniels and so on, it's the Western Conference is different, isn't it? I mean, you guys just beat Denver. Now, I mean, the year after winning a championship, maybe there was some kind of a hangover, so they're going to be tough for sure. DeRozan goes to Sacramento. You know what's going on in Los Angeles with LeBron and AD and their age and everything. Phoenix, you guys already beat them. It's the Western Conference. It's kind of morphing into something different now that Golden State isn't the one to beat every year, right?
Yeah, it's a bloodbath. I mean, I think the whole NBA is like that. The talent level within the league is now evened out. And so, what we have to do, here is continue to develop in-house, right? So, we have young guys, we have a young core, but we also have, some savvy vets, who are ready to win now, too. So the process of, developing our young core is going to be huge. And, with my responsibility to teach these guys how to play basketball is going to be second to none. And that's due to the fact of like you said, the Western Conference is stacked. And there are teams that are not ready to win tomorrow, they're ready to win now. And so, we have to be on the same timeline as that, too, as well.
Chris, as coach of the Timberwolves Summer League team, what are some goals you set forth for the gang?
The biggest thing for me, and I told the staff, is teaching these guys. Like, how do we teach and win at the same time, right? And that's the biggest, and that's one of the hardest things that, I think in some leagues you have to do. A lot of these guys haven't played on an NBA court, they haven't touched the floor yet. And if they did, they have limited experience. So to speed that process up, I have to give them, a dose of NBA experience, not only through practice, but through these actual games and preparation. So for me, it's going to be huge that, not only do we try to win, but we try to teach these guys how to, motivate themselves to get ready, to stay ready, and prepare like an actual NBA player.
How from what you've seen so far, how quick is Rob Dillingham off the dribble?
He has some great flashes. I mean, the talent is definitely there. It's definitely natural. It's definitely there. He has a great deception about him with his handle. I think one of the underrated things that he has is the touch around the rim that, we can definitely, work on to get him to his spots and things of that nature. But the kid is super talented. He's super competitive. Which I love about him. And he loves to play basketball. You don't get that a lot from young guys. Like, he wants to play. Since he's been here, every day he's asking me, are we playing? Are we playing? And that's a good sign.
So when you say Dillingham is deceptive with the ball, and from his days at Kentucky, I mean, shoot, you can fire up the YouTube machine and see 30 consecutive crossovers and him breaking people down one-on-one. Is that his strength at that part of his professional life? And like what would be next as he grows to age 20 and 21 and so on?
Yeah, I think his strength is that playing off the bounce, scoring. I think he can be elite scorer in due time. I don't think you're going to see it immediately. But I think his strength is definitely going to be, putting the ball in the hole. But, I think if we do the right thing to develop him, he's going to be a playmaker as well because he is so hard to stay in front of. So, with that being said, it's our job to, put him in a position to be successful, within the NBA.
What are you liking about Terrence Shannon Jr.?
I think when people see him, they're going to be surprised at how fast he is in transition. I mean, he's a blur. I've been around the game, for 10 years coaching, and I've coached some of the best players in the world and worked with some of them. And this kid is super fast in the open floor. And, he's super aggressive at the rim. And, he's tenacious, I think, off the catch, too, as well. So, he's a guy that, I look at as maybe a ready-to-play-now guy. But, obviously the experience within the NBA is where, these young guys have to get to. But, I love him. And he's super coachable. So I think his development will move on pretty quick.
Chris Hines, 9 to noon. He's coaching the Timberwolves Summer League team. They start Friday against the New Orleans Pelicans. They get at least 4 or 5 games in the Summer League in Las Vegas, and Chris has the honor of coaching. And, with that honor and the task that's in front of you, Chris, is Coach Finch around the practices? And how does he get you and the staff set up for this job?
He's been here the past 2 days. He'll definitely meet us in Vegas. Coach Finch is coaching me, so that's what Coach does. He kind of gave me the keys to lead the team and put the ball in my hands. So I'm honored, to have that, and through his experience, has been great as well. But he's coaching me to coach the team, and so that's been super helpful with his experience.
It is Las Vegas. Now these are young adults, emphasis on the word adult, but do you have to stress lifestyle rules for before and after the work is done in Las Vegas?
I mean, for sure, at the end of the day, these guys are all fighting for jobs. And, if the outside life is more important than the job, then you're in the wrong profession. So, that's been established and talked about. Hopefully we can just continue to, make, hone these young guys in and help them understand that, the true, responsibility that they have, while they're in Vegas.
A couple more for Coach Hines, and we appreciate the time. Jalen Clark, how is he advancing off the Achilles rupture?
He's doing well. One of the things that, we've been, stressing with him is, finding your feet. Within, your game, he's a tenacious defender, especially on ball. And so, finding, he hasn't played in a while. So, his rhythm is a little bit shaky right now. But, the other tangibles that he has, though, are so impactful that, he's definitely not only going to help us be, key piece to us.
Is it tricky installing offense and or defense for these summer league games, which begin Friday versus the Pelicans, or is it about putting young players in compromising positions and doing so purposely to see how they handle it?
Yeah, the tricky part is understanding, the roster and trying to figure out your team's strengths and weaknesses within, a few days of practice. Guys getting to know each other. The offense and defense of basketball, man, it really takes time to, kind of form and be put together. And so, for us to try to do that, NBA training camp is, it's pretty much, 8 days almost. And, we have, less than 4. And so it's kind of hard to establish that. But the good thing is, we have good bones here. We have a good structure. We have great assistant coaches on the staff with good basketball knowledge. And so we just want to put these guys in a position to succeed.
And when last one, when the regular season and postseason are rolling around, Coach Hines, what is your role with the squad during the season?
I am I'm an assistant coach, and now I am director of player development. For the past 4 years, I've been here. I've had several scouts that I have presented for teams and hold on to that responsibility, and also special teams, zone presses, those things of that nature. And then my PD responsibilities. Anthony Edwards has been my biggest project, here within the organization. So developing him, developing our young guys, Jordan McLaughlin, which is going now, and also Nas Reed and Jay McDaniels. The young core has been one of my main responsibilities of being hands-on with their skill set. So it's been a fun ride. It's been a great experience, and again, these guys are growing every year. So it's a testament to their hard work.
That was fantastic, and best of luck in Las Vegas. In closing, go Utes, go Bulldogs, go Timberwolves, and I apologize for the name mistake.
Oh, no problem. It happens all the time, Paul. Don't worry about it. It happens all the time. But no, I appreciate it, and it was fun.
Good meeting you, and I hope to see you out there Tuesday when you play the Sixers, okay?
For sure. Sounds good.
See you, bud.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Chris Hines, assistant coach for the Minnesota Timberwolves, also director of player development, and he's the head man for the Timberwolves Summer League squad. The first game is Friday against New Orleans. And we welcome you to 9 to noon. Speaking of Hines, John Hines is coach of the Minnesota Wild. They have their developmental camp taking place, and he will join us at about 11 o'clock. Mike Florio from ProFootballTalk.com. He joins about 25 minutes from now or so, and Vikes Bites are around the corner. It's Paul Allen. Thank you, TimberTech and TimberTech.com for the What's on Deck 9 to noon. Nordo produces and has the cash thing. Good morning.
Good morning, the fan and BigDeck.com. Want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. This hour's keyword is green. You might win $1,000 if you go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword green. KFAN.com. Indeed. Thank you for listening to 9 to noon. Man, Chris Hines got me pumped for Summer League Friday. Dillingham, Terrence Shannon Jr., Kentucky kids, sweet off the bounce. Everything's feeling good for the...
Shannon runs like the wind.
Absolutely. 6'7", massive wingspan, the whole bit. So pump for Wolves Summer League, pump for Vikings training camp. Which brings us to Vikes Bites.
Vikes Bites.
Vikes Bites brought to you
Vikes Bites.
by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed grass-fed beef. Go to thousandhillslifetimegrazed.com and get some grass-fed bites. A box of meat. You order it online. It shows up at your doorstep. Or you go to Coburn's. You go to your local co-op. Clearwater, Minnesota company as well. Matt and everybody there do terrific work. And they support local athletes, Dinkytown Athletics as well. So Thousand Hills, local, keeping it local. And let's keep it local with our favorite football team, PA. I want to start with second-year linebacker Ivan Pace Jr. Cincinnati cat. He's undersized. He's like an All-American, unbelievable, one of the best linebackers in the country, but he's super short. What's he going to do in the NFL? Goes undrafted. And the Vikings find him. So we see the rookie campaign, and this was courtesy of Pro Football Focus a couple of months ago. So this is old news to the hardcores and the PFF subscribers. But you and I, we do not subscribe to PFF, so we wait for these things to pop out in other avenues. Most underrated players for each team in the NFL. This in particular with the Minnesota Vikings.
Like it.
They chose Ivan Pace Jr., and here's what they said. Pace burst onto the scene as an undrafted rookie in 2023, third highest graded linebacker in the entire NFL after 3 weeks. While his performance tailed off a bit and his playing time was reduced, he remained very productive on pass plays. Pace was one of just 2 linebackers to earn PFF grades over 77 for both coverage and pass rush. The other being Fred Warner. That's not bad. That's not a bad person to be in company with.
Damn, that's nice.
As it pertains to coverage, as it pertains to being at the linebacker spot. So that's Ivan Pace, courtesy of PFF. Now, more recently, Connor Orr at Sports Illustrated. Here's what he said. There is raw talent and there is supernatural instinct. Supernatural instinct. The latter of which Pace seems to major in.
Right.
Despite coming into the season at the bottom of the pecking order in a notoriously amoebic Brian Flores defense. Ooh, amoebic.
Right.
Write that down because we got hybrid 3-4 with floaters. If we can work amoebic into it.
I like that.
I do too.
Amoeba-based.
Pace ended up not only being as good a blitzer as he was in college, but a true off-ball linebacker who could handle just about any situation. Pace was up on the line of scrimmage for about 10% of his rookie year snaps, which can help Minnesota diversify a tough unit even more in 2024. Wouldn't be surprising to see him as part of the next generation of foundational leaders for this unit, which is being turned over under the Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah regime. So Pace year 2, just vibes on him. We know Blake Cashman coming in.
Yep.
Green dot, all of that. Unload that mental notebook for a moment, if you may, in terms of Ivan Pace Jr., his ascension into that spot, his rookie season, and what now we really have come to expect and would really love to have again, if not even better, in year 2.
I have a pickle at the nickel. And when I say pickle at the nickel, that means when the Vikings go to nickel defense, meaning an extra defensive back, which they play 67, 68% of the time. Then when they go to dime, another DB comes in or another player comes in, and generally a linebacker leaves. So here's my conundrum until we start seeing him. The 4 linebackers who will play most are Jonathan Grenard, Dallas Turner, Ivan Pace Jr., and Blake Cashman. Those 4 will play most. What do you do when the extra DB comes in? Who comes off the field and why? What about when you go dime? Is it going to be 1 or 2 linebackers? How does Metellus fit into this mix? Because he, in essence, would play hybrid, pickle at nickel, extra linebacker, and be a floater in the 3-4, in the hybrid, in the amoebic. In the 3-4 hybrid with floaters. I mean, pick your poison with that defense. But help me here. What do you think? If you were to cast your gaze the way of the Giants game, if there only are 2 on the field because of nickel, it's a pickle. It's a pickle with the nickel.
Is it a coin flip? And that's where ultimately, whether it's Pete Bursich knowing the position as well as he does, and actually getting the pads on and seeing things happen.
Yeah.
That's where things get really difficult for me in terms of identifying what Blake Cashman did so well. I mean, he really, in his first true opportunity to start, I mean, we saw him special teams and bit player here and there with New York, finally gets the chance to do some good in Houston.
Yeah.
And you can't say enough about him grasping that opportunity. So super excited about that. Now, with that said, what are there differences in terms of the speed?
Pickle.
Yeah, it is a pickle.
It's a pickle at the nickel until we see it.
I think it's a coin flip.
Dallas Turner goes to defensive end, I would imagine. The cliched hand in the grass bit. So you Grenard, I'm not sure if he plays hand in the grass defensive end, but with Flores, I mean, they all play all over the place. Cashman with the green dot, meaning he calls the plays. I mean, does that mean he plays every single play? That's probably favored.
And it's guaranteed. You think that he is the green dot, that he's the field general?
Great point. Great question. Because I am taking that leap. He did it for 1 game, 1 maybe 2 with Houston, when their inside guy was down. It might have been Denzel Perryman. And in the game he did it, he had 20 tackles. He had like 18 or 20 tackles.
Oh, somebody called his own plays. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, why are you mugging the A gap? Because I'm calling the plays. So the play caller, the aforementioned green dot, it doesn't mean that, Ivan Pace Jr. can't green dot the thing. Jordan Hicks did it last year. Who did it when Hicks went down? I think it was Ivan Pace Jr.
Well, and he got a little love in a preseason game. Hicks was not going to play in the preseason, so he got a little bit of experience there. But that leads me back to the pickle you're talking about in the coin flip, is the fact that both are coming into a spot where they do have some limited experience in terms of being that guy and kind of, directing traffic, so to speak, on the defense of the amoeba and all the floaters and everything. You're right, man. Who comes off?
Right.
Is it Cashman or is it Ivan Pace Jr.? Maybe that comes down to physicals. Maybe that comes down to measurables and moments.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that in itself is and then you haven't even mentioned the idea of having 3 safeties on the field.
Wow.
A fair amount as well.
Right.
So what the hell does this thing look like on a play-to-play basis?
Metellus plays every play. Okay, so Josh, in my estimation, unless when I say every play, Flores like Bynum would play every play in games. Hitman had some reps taken off. I think the Hitman will have some reps taken off of him this year while starting and playing a majority of the game. So Metellus gets run. How much has Jay Ward developed? And that's Swiss Army knife related terrorism. That's right up Flores' alley with the amoebic and with the pickle at the nickel and the 3-4 hybrid with floaters. So now you got Shaq Griffin and you have Byron Murphy Jr. Who do we make favored to start at corner? When I would imagine they would start Murphy and Griffin when it's just 2 corners. And then Evans, I would make favored to slide in to be the third when they go nickel. What do you do with Metellus? Now, the Pro Football Focus pass coverage metric for Ivan Pace Jr., I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm not saying it's right because I just don't, really know if everything PFF puts out there, like how exactly accurate it is. But it's respected. And from a context standpoint, when Ivan was teacupping or trucking right guards for the Super Chickens in the first preseason game, and then continue to open eyes that way with his ferocity, his thrust, his tenacity, and his God-given strength. That he made a name for himself very early in his National Football League run. My take was that's great, but until he's put in compromising positions to cover the pass, you really don't know what the overall game looks like. Like, remember Eric Wilson, who's still in the league. I think he plays for Green Bay. Eric, at every opportunity he would get to fill in for Barr or Kendricks, he would force a fumble, he'd pick off a pass, he'd sack a quarterback. Eric made tackles for loss. Eric splashed almost every time he got an opportunity. Then they played the Oakland Raiders at U.S. Bank Stadium, might have been 2016. It's when Alexander Madison, I believe, had his first rushing touchdown, following the blocking of Irv Smith right up the middle. And in that game, they identified Wilson with Darren Waller, and Eric had no chance, with all due respect. Waller was at the top of his game at that time, but they're like, hey, we see you making all these plays, making all these tackles. Let's see if you can run. And let's see how far you can run with a fast tight end. And it didn't work at that time. Now, subsequently, Eric improved on it or he wouldn't still be in the league. Ivan Pace Jr., I think, had a pretty acrobatic interception against the Raiders in Las Vegas. And it's when you would watch back Ivan Pace Jr. plays, you would see the instincts and the steps get faster and faster and faster as the season went on with the recognition of how to cover the pass. So being undrafted, short arms, whole thing, he really, really has done a good job for himself.
It's interesting. You got me thinking further down the line now, mentioning even when you go to nickel, et cetera.
On the pickle.
There were 4 players that played more than 1,000 snaps on defense last year. Daniil Hunter, and then the 3 safeties.
Yeah.
It was Cam and Hitman and Metellus. Metellus played 94% of the snaps. Harrison Smith, 98.5%. And Cameron Bynum, he took a total of 9 snaps off the entire season.
Right.
Cam's an interesting talker that I have for you maybe tomorrow in Vikes Bites, in particular to his future with the purple. But kind of the idea, we've been talking about cornerbacks and securing that spot. You bring in Shaq Griffin. And you've been talking about Byron Murphy Jr. Do you think the 3 safety look or having them in there and the Swiss Army knife that is Josh Metellus, is that a function of his ability to shine in those moments? He's in coverage, he's in the pass rush, he's blitzing, those sorts of things. Is that a function of the quality and being exactly what Brian Flores needs in this defense? Or is that a function of the fact that the cornerback spot, we have struggled with that? And we are constantly talking about, will Andrew Booth Jr. make the team? Can a Caleb Evans show a pulse now into year 3? Those sorts of conversations taking place. Is it out of necessity that these 3 safeties have found as much success as they have in this defense that you can't get Metellus off the field? Does that change if you find some talent and some quality at the cornerback spot?
I don't believe, even though his position is listed as safety, and I mean, you're not going to put on a roster hybrid. But Metellus, I mean, what is he? I don't know what the percentage breakdown is of how much he played linebacker, how much he played where, who, what, where, when, and why.
And I don't have that in front of me. So this is a little bit of, just kind of floating in my mind right now.
Well, but the thing is it comes back to deception. And Brian Flores' defense is predicated on deception. That's why I firmly believe in the first 3 games there were some problems with Mike Evans and Devontae Smith and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and things like that. Because, outside of Jordan Hicks and Harrison Smith, it just felt to me like the other 9-ish or whomever comes off the bench and plays a lot just wasn't completely in lockstep with what Flores wanted. Once they got in lockstep and you get 150, 250, 350 of those plays on film for the adversary to take a gander, well, now when you see the 7 line strewn across the line of scrimmage, Flores has plenty off which to work. And that plays into Metellus because Josh is a wild card in the 52-card deck where you can use him so many different ways in so many different places. So that's why I don't pigeonhole him as a safety, even though, by trade he is a safety. And
that makes sense.
But playing into the pickle at the nickel, absolutely, it does. Because whether they're falling back into zone, whatever they're falling back into, it is designed to deceive. You've seen a Mr. Goff. You've seen this. You've seen this. We okay over there? We've seen this 26 times on film. So which one of the 26 are you going to bring with this pass rush? And where's Metellus going to go? And for a long patch of the season, that really was advantageous to the Vikings defense. Very, very, very good question. It's 9:36. Florio PFT around the corner on KFAN.
Hardcore football.
Hey, Mike. Paul Allen, what's going on, bud?
Hi, Paul. How are you, Paul?
Mr. Mike Florio, PFT, ProFootballTalk.com, NBC's Football Night in America. We're not far away from those games. And author, where Son of Mine, the Kindle edition, the sequel to Father of Mine, is purchasable right now. You can pre-order it for just $4.99. Best place to start is at ProFootballTalk.com. That's where I unveiled the intel. And Son of Mine, what do you like about it? Off Father of Mine, Mike.
I like everything about it. It's far better, not to take anything away from the original. And usually it's hard for the sequel to live up to the original. This is actually a lot better. It's 3 distinct parts, 3 different stories that are each 40 chapters long, short chapters, quick read. You'll fly through it. They all interconnect at the end. And it already has me percolating ideas for a third one, although I really don't want to do a third one. We'll see how the second one does. I enjoyed the second one. When I finished the first story, it's like, there's more to tell here. And frankly, I'm kind of thinking now that I've put number 2 in the can, there's still more to tell. And given that the story ends in 1975, there's about 50 more years of events that could play out.
What makes Wheeling, West Virginia descript? Like why Wheeling, West Virginia? I mean, maybe everything transpired there, but like Wheeling, what's interesting about that?
Well, it's where I grew up.
Sweet.
And it's no different than most of the small towns in and around Pittsburgh. If Mason and Dixon hadn't hit hostile Native Americans about 10 miles from the Ohio River, the Mason-Dixon line would have chopped off what became the northern panhandle of West Virginia, and I would have grown up in Wheeling, Pennsylvania, or whatever name the city would have had. So it really felt more like southwestern Pennsylvania, and there are a lot of small towns like that, coal towns, steel mining towns, dotted throughout the landscape in Western Pennsylvania, and that's pretty much what it was and what it is. And even though it was one of many small towns, the mob had a strong presence and really almost unfettered and unchallenged because you didn't have that larger city apparatus for fighting crime. It was all out in the open. Everybody knew about it. And that was the basic organization that inspired the original book, and the second book just flows from it. With
the legalizing of sports wagering in so many states, and obviously you have offshore wagering options, but just legit wagering options too, all throughout the country. What has become of the bookie? Any idea are there still bookies?
I remember when I was a kid in the 70s, there was one of the conversations in the household that I wasn't supposed to hear. But, when you're a kid, you hear everything, especially the stuff you're not supposed to hear. There was concern that gambling was going to be legalized. And I remember thinking, well, wouldn't that be a good thing? Then there would no longer be this vague concern that someday the cops are going to show up and shut the place down and take Dad to jail. And that was one of the various clouds I lived under in the 70s, although the ongoing and ever-present threat of nuclear war tend to dwarf and if you remember that, Paul, growing up in the same time frame, I mean, God, we were always concerned about we're being a minute away from nuclear war, but I digress. The reaction I had was this is good, but then I heard the follow-up. Basically, what happens when they legalize gambling is they shut down anyone who is doing it illegally because that's the competition now, that the state doesn't care when they're not making any money off of it. The minute it becomes a revenue stream, anyone out there who's doing it beyond the boundaries of the state-offered program is competing with the House. So that was always the big concern, that if it ever became legalized, that would be the quickest way for Dad's business to be shut down.
Now, Son of Mine, the ebook can be purchased right now. Learn more at PFT. You can pre-order, that is. And it's $4.99. Amazon.com is what I'm looking at right now. And
Dan, Paul, you're selling this thing today like you're getting a piece of the royalties. I don't want to get a letter from you making a pitch as to why I should be sending you a piece of the action.
No, what I'm doing is I'm amplifying and multiplying the amount of money we give you weekly year-round.
I always love that one.
And taking care of that all in one swing. September 3rd is when the book and the Kindle and everything comes out. It's profootballtalk.com for Son of Mine. The Minnesota Vikings have a joint practice with Negan in a month. What do you think about the Cleveland Browns this year?
I think they're, for the second straight year, one of the biggest wild cards in the NFL because we don't know what Deshaun Watson is going to do. Last year, they managed to get to the playoffs, and they felt like a team that maybe could put together a nice little run, but Joe Flacco had a few too many mistakes in the blowout loss to the Houston Texans in the Super Wild Card round. But if Deshaun Watson plays like he did in 2020 or prior to that, the Browns could be a potential Super Bowl team. But we've yet to see him play like he did the last full season that he performed in Houston, the season before he decided he wanted out, sat out the whole year, had the off-field issue, then gets traded to the Browns. They give him that huge contract. He's got 2 years left after 2024, fully guaranteed at $46 million per year. I wonder at what point they say, you know what, we're just going to bite the bullet here. We're going to pay you the money. Just go. We're going to go in a different direction. And I think what he does this year is going to be a huge factor in whether or not they keep this thing going beyond the upcoming season. Because at some point, they've just got to recognize if he does not deliver on the promise that fueled that decision to trade for him, they've got to find somebody that they can count on to perform at a high level at that position moving forward.
And with Deshaun, and a question being, can he ever be consistently good again? And I tie that to, is there a chance that he suffers from PTSD from the unfortunate positions he put himself in with the Texans? I mean, that, like that just doesn't leave your mind, right?
Well, I think it's a combination of everything that happened, regardless of how he feels about why it happened, who's to blame, what he did, what he didn't do. You've got that. And, there is a price to be paid for having a fully guaranteed 5-year market value contract, because what does that do? It increases the expectations on the player. It increases the pressure. You've got to justify it. For a guy like Russell Wilson, if he didn't live up to it, what happens? they cut the cord and they move on.
Right.
For other guys who get big contracts, and I had this conversation earlier today with Joe Rose on WQAM in Miami, because as it relates to either Jordan Love or Tua Tagovailoa, the numbers that we see don't matter. What matters is the structure and when in time the team can say, you're not living up to it, we move on. The Browns don't have that luxury. 5 years fully guaranteed, and I think it puts more pressure on the player. So all these concerns, all these experiences, this is still a relatively young man. It's a lot to process. And when you think about the opportunities you have to justify the investment, and we never talk about all the draft picks they gave up, 3 first-rounders and 3 other draft picks. They made a gigantic overall money and draft pick investment to get this guy. You don't have many opportunities to prove yourself. You got one game at a time, 1 week at a time, and everything gets amplified, everything gets magnified. He was looking good at times last year, but then he got injured. And, you know, what's going to happen this year? Is he going to press? Is he going to try to justify that contract with one game, with one throw, with one moment? It's not easy to do. A lot of it's self-inflicted, but I think some of it also comes from the circumstance. And I think it's a cautionary tale for other quarterbacks who are thinking, I'd love to have a 5-year fully guaranteed contract. Maybe you should talk to Deshaun Watson before you do that.
Beautifully stated.
Florio.
Kyrie Jackson, the Oregon rookie who was killed over the weekend in a 3-car crash. Other than the death of 3 young men, what troubles you about the whole ordeal?
I mean, that the death of 3 young men, and to the extent that alcohol potentially was involved in the accident, we still haven't seen the results of any of the investigations that have happened. But you know, we see these other incidents, whether it's Rashee Rice and the street racing at extreme rates of speed in Dallas in and around other cars. They were lucky there that no one was killed. There's the Oklahoma State running back, Ollie Gordon, and his head coach, Mike Gundy, made some news yesterday with some ill-advised comments justifying and excusing what Gordon did because he got lucky and nobody got injured or killed. The reason there needs to be strong consequences for anyone who engages in any type of unsafe use of a motor vehicle is we don't want to play a game of chance with the lives of innocent people. Just because no one got killed in the Rashee Rice situation or in the Ollie Gordon situation doesn't make it okay. We don't want, as a society, to be in a situation where people are taking those kinds of risks because they often do result in serious injury or death. And I think what happened to Kyrie Jackson and his 2 high school teammates underscores that point. If we take this a little more seriously, and in this day and age, there's no reason for anybody to drive drunk. We're all carrying around this little box that does a million things, and you press a button and a car comes and gets you wherever you are. There's no excuse for it. I just think we need to understand that and act accordingly. And even if there's a situation where someone gets caught driving drunk and no one was injured or killed, the punishment still needs to be strong enough to get people to not do it. Because if people don't do it, then you're never going to have anybody injured or killed. And I know that's an unrealistic goal, but I'd like to think we could at least aspire to get there.
Now, at ProFootballTalk.com with Mike Florio, very interesting stories always there, but specifically now, and something Mike posted an hour ago, Sunday Ticket Trial Day 2, opening statements. Maybe, and if you've written about this, I apologize. Maybe the NFL is cutting cash all over the place with teams, NFL Network, just things like that, because it's going to get dinged billions in this Sunday ticket kerfuffle. What do you think?
I don't think that that's why they were doing it. I don't think they recognized how serious of a jam that they were in with the Sunday ticket trial until it got rolling. I think they were overly confident that they were going to win. And one of the reasons that I ordered at not insignificant price the full transcript of the trial, I was very disappointed by the media's coverage of the trial. Now, look, I guess I could have gone to L.A. for 4 weeks and been there myself, but I would have liked to have thought that there would have been major publications who would have sent reporters there with daily reports and analysis of what was happening. And that really didn't happen. It felt like an afterthought. And once we began to understand the stakes, it was like, man, this is a pretty big deal. Like, this could go pretty badly for the NFL. And so far it has, with a $4.7 billion verdict under the antitrust laws, will get tripled to $14 billion. Now, the NFL has what I think look to be persuasive arguments to throw the verdict out. We'll see if the judge does it. They'll have appeals at their disposal. This thing is a big, big deal. I don't think the NFL is cutting costs in anticipation of paying that money. I think they're still confident they'll never have to. The real question is moving forward. Now that the consumers are in a position to know that for 30 years they've been getting screwed by the overpricing of Sunday tickets, so people will choose to just watch the games that are available for free from CBS and Fox in their local markets to boost those ratings. Now that the consumers know what's been going on, will the NFL change the practice, and will it allow the current provider of Sunday tickets to set whatever price it wants and not have a price so high that people will say, yeah, I am not paying for that. I'm just going to watch whatever games you give me, even if they're the games I don't want to watch.
Now, with Justin Jefferson, there's also a story of PFT involving JJ. He told Rich Eisen he felt Kirk Cousins wanted a new start. Did that in any way surprise you?
No, it didn't surprise me. I think that Kirk Cousins had grown weary with this year-to-year, let's see how it goes, You remember the steam from a couple of years ago when they were looking at Justin Fields. I'm sure Kirk Cousins caught wind of that, just general sense that it was temporary. And I think that's why the Falcons' decision to take Michael Penix Jr. had to hurt him deeply. And, when he was asked the question at a press conference, would you have still signed with the Falcons if you'd known? He said, I don't want to get into hypotheticals, which is another way of saying, oh, of course I wouldn't have signed with the Falcons if I had known this. He wants a place that feels like home. And the Vikings, for him, once we got past those first couple of seasons, there was always that hesitation. It was always a Band-Aid. It was never a long-term, you're clearly our guy. And I think they spent several years looking for someone better. And he was in a position where he could exercise his prerogative to go before they did. And I really do wonder deep down how upset folks were. I think some were. I think there were others in the organization that knew it was inevitable and preferred to just go ahead and be done with it now.
And lastly, at PFT, Mike's all over the Dallas Cowboys, and for good reason. What chance is there that it's being set up? All right. I mean, you on the video portion of it, you called the Cowboys cheap and short-sighted last week for lack of deals for Lamb, Parsons, and Dak. Is there a chance this thing's being set up for McCarthy to fail and Zimmer rolls in, say, by like week 7 when they play Cousins and the Falcons and becomes the head coach?
Jerry Jones has only ever fired one coach during the season. That was Wade Phillips in 2010, and Jason Garrett took over. And Jerry said, I'm not going to do it, and then he did it. I don't know that it comes to that. I mean, if the wheels come off, all bets are off because, look, McCarthy won't be back next year if the Cowboys just stink the first 2 months of the 2024 season. I hadn't thought about him being fired during the season, but I guess it's not impossible. And I don't know that they're setting him up to fail. I just think that they recognize they've painted themselves into multiple different corners by how they've mishandled their great young players. And they've done it in both ways. They failed to pay guys when they should have paid them, and then they paid guys when they shouldn't have, like the contract they gave to receiver Michael Gallup. They never should have done that. They shouldn't have franchise tagged running back Tony Pollard. They've just handled situations poorly. They're very good at finding great young talent, but they wait too long to pay these guys, and they may have 2 of those 3 guys not show up for training camp. I mean, CeeDee Lamb,
right.
The message is already pretty clear. Micah Parsons might not show up either.
I'll call you in a couple of weeks. Enjoy the rest of July, and thank you very much for the time. Good luck with Son of Mine, and ProFootballTalk.com is where people can learn more. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Paul.
Mike Florio, PFT. Yeah, that's a 20-ish, 21, 22-ish year weekly guest, 9 to noon, and the crowd still seems to love him. Into the second hour of the 9 to noon presentation, about an hour from now, John Hines, coach of the Minnesota Wild, joins to talk about development camp. And hour 20 from now, Cheryl Reeve from the West Coast, after beating the LA Sparks last evening, the president of basketball operations and coach of the Minnesota Lynx, Cheryl Reeve joins at about 11:20. You're listening to